assigned. And I'm in AFAS 160D, and the professor's Brian Carter. And my focus of kind of emphasis today is on the author discussion, in which I will be telling you a little bit about the person in which I was assigned. The author in which I was assigned for this author discussion is James Weldon Johnson, who was, as you can see here, born in 1870 in Jacksonville, Florida, and he eventually passed away in 1938 in the state of Maine. And although it wasn't specified that we kind of had to go into detail about the author, and I'm sure that will kind of be another group's job as well for this project, but I kind of wanted to get into it because James Weldon Johnson is such a fascinating man. When I first started to do some research on him, he was born in Florida, like I said. His father, a head waiter at a hotel, and his mother, a teacher at a segregated school. And he attended that school until high school, where then he attended Atlanta University for high school and college and received his bachelor's there in 1894 and his master's from the same school in 1904. A few of his accomplishments after college included one being an educator at Fisk University and a principal at an African American high school in Florida. And he composed music with his brother. A little background on that: over 200 Broadway musical songs, including the one that you see there, Lift Every Voice and Sing. He was appointed by the U.S. President Roosevelt during the years of 1906 to 1914 to be appointed as U.S. consul in Venezuela and Nicaragua over that time. And he was the treasurer of the Colored Republican Club. And also he was an author, which is why we're discussing him mainly today. But he is the author of the book we will get into, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, and one of his best-known works, God's Trombone. And to kind of go along with it, as I spoke on before, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, a little bit of an intro to it. The narrator is eventually, after being born in Florida, he was raised in the state of Georgia. And then as a young male, he moved to the state of Connecticut with his mother. And his father, actually, he only encounters him, I think it was twice throughout the book, right? So he's rarely seen. So he was raised by his mother the majority of the time. And he took an interest in music, and especially the act of composing to go along with being a musician, when he was very, very highly talented in that field. But he dealt with, as a biracial male at the time, a lot of racial hardships, especially early on in his academic life. I think that's where they kind of sprouted. But his mother also passed away early on due to an illness before he could even enter into college. And like I said, with a father who he only encounters a few times, that is something that definitely had to reroute him in some ways and made him think about changing his college decision, which led him to enrolling at Atlanta University and moving back down south to the great state of Georgia. And a few key summaries to kind of go along with it. A few key points that I actually looked up, a few on my own, but yeah, the narrator throughout the book, it's proven that he doesn't see color or discriminate, because he's so lost in the confusion of what standpoint he stands at, being biracial. And yeah, he moves to Connecticut, then to New York to work at a cigar factory, and he falls in love with not only ragtime music, which was a big form of entertainment at the time for the African American culture, but he was also hired to play at many clubs and scenes, such as a rich white male's house, where eventually the wife showed a little bit of companionship to him being in the house, but the husband then shot the wife, and that obviously made him rethink the world at the time and the hardships that they were going through, even in the North at the time, and he wasn't really sure of what direction to head into, as I stated before. But to kind of touch on the main theme is racism, and it's a major factor throughout the book, as it says there. But I think the narrator hoped to push across the outline of negative disadvantages that racism had on the development of the whole culture of African Americans, and time how there was a struggle economically and politically, basically through all facets of life. It was very difficult. So he kind of wanted to outline that throughout the book, and to kind of lead in, his music and writing played such a big, gigantic role, I should say, showing that his creativity as a highly skilled writer can actually push across um, to multiple genres of music. Like I said before, classical and ragtime, to kind of outlay the hardships in one, and to kind of also make his voice heard among both groups of people, in order to kind of stress his views and emotions throughout entertainment, not violence. But also to kind of touch on the progression of society at that point. I mean, as he just saw early on in life with a mother who passed away and a dad who's rarely ever there, and what he saw at that male's house happen with the wife, I think it's true that he wanted to kind of go back down south and like I was saying, politically and economically, level the playing fields through his talents, and show that even though people had to face these hardships, that through like rewarding times and many accomplishments of multiple African Americans at the time, that they essentially can be on the level playing field as they should be. And the last thing that I kind of had to touch on, just for my part alone, was the characters seen throughout the not only the intro of the novel, but just some key characters in general, such as the narrator, a bright-minded, biracial individual, skilled in music, composing. As we saw, he was an educator, writing, any way you want to slice it. James Weldon Johnson was a very, very, very highly skilled individual. So he is the narrator. His mother, a very compassionate lady who was a teacher and eventually passed away. Um, but she worked her hardest to kind of increase the opportunities that he had in life, and show that we can make the most and maximize the potential out of the situation given. Skinny, a also very bright-minded classmate of his, who was the valedictorian, delivered a speech that was very significant throughout the book because I think it kind of changed the narrator's mind on a few things and showed, wow, the speech that was given was very, very impactful on him, and I think he wanted to make a change in his own way too. And then along the way, he met Red, which was actually his first true friend at his new school after relocating from Georgia to Connecticut, and he was described as a large built person, but mainly they connected on a deeper level because neither of them saw into color being a big thing as it it shouldn't be. And they connected on a very good level and built a very strong relationship there. And the narrator's father is the last one I want to touch on. The narrator's father obviously was someone who was scarcely there, but he was very successful, a very handsome individual as described in the book. And, you know, this resulted in a lot of confusion, especially after the passing away of the narrator's mother, because he kind of wondered where that disconnect was. But to kind of wrap up, I just want to say I had a genuine time learning about this and learning about this author. And I'm from Connecticut, and it opened my eyes a little bit because of the fact that it showed that no matter where at the time um, in the country, there were hardships for this racial class of people, and even in Connecticut, New York, even in places that were considered the North, there were very, very difficult times for the group of people. And I think James Weldon Johnson showed me that you can be the front runner and a leader, regardless of what everyone says. And you can reach out to people and truly connect with them on a deeper level. Even if you are unsure of yourself, if you'll even be able to get success in that field of changing the world. But I think with hard work and all that effort that James Weldon Johnson did show throughout the book, and throughout his life, I think that translates greatly. And I think that's something that should be looked on because you should never quit. Everyone has a skill set of talents, and I loved finding out that he wasn't just known as an author. He was just a very great individual as well. Thank you very much. And on the next page, I will Also glance at the works cited page, and I'll give a little introduction on that. And obviously you can see here that's pretty self-explanatory. I was just making sure I had all my work done and shown for throughout the text or anything, any kind of background information I had. It should all be here. But yeah, thank you very much.